Hi, it's Michelle from Bits and Pieces Paper Lab. Today I'm going to share a couple of different ideas for bridge cards or cutaway cards. I've heard these called a couple different things, but essentially it's a design where there's two panels and then words connect the two panels. So this is a cut file. Obviously, these can be made without cut files, but the cut file does pretty much all the work for you. So we're going to work with both Mom and Thanks. We've got two different designs, and I'm going to show you 4 different techniques for making these look cool. So these cut files are actually free. You can find them in a link down below. I send out cut files like these each month in my newsletter. So if you want to get these on a regular basis, just hit subscribe on my newsletter. You'll find that link in the description as well. All right, let's get started. Okay, idea number 1 is to use printed acetate. So you can see this is actually clear, and then it has this cool holographic lattice printed on it, but it's actually just clear acetate. So when it's layered behind the window, it gives such a cool effect because it looks like it's kind of like an optical illusion. People will kind of have to try to figure out how that all works. So the way this goes together is we mount something behind the letters on the back side of the card that shows through to the front. And then we actually stack a couple different layers of letters. So the file includes 2 letters, 2 sets of each letter, and you're just going to glue these together and stack them up. And basically this mimics chipboard. It creates like a really thick cardstock, and then that gets mounted onto the front of the card. Now you could cut a ton more layers if you wanted it super thick, if you wanted it to really pop off, you could just keep cutting layers of letters, but we're gonna just do 2 for these cards. Now the way this is gonna work, I'm gonna show you just basic assembly and ideas. And then at the end, I'm going to go back and actually finish all the cards. So we'll start with just some basic ideas, and then you can see the finished cards at the end. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is layer our letters. So I'm going to go ahead and get some glue down. Now I'm using Barely Arts Precision Glue. This has that super fine tip on it, so it makes it really easy to use it on tiny little details without making a mess. So I'm gonna just layer up my M's and move along with my letters. You want to just make sure that you're getting these perfectly matched up, which is why I like to use liquid adhesive. It gives me just a minute to kind of shift things into position, and that's why I prefer liquid as opposed to like a tape runner or something like that. Okay, so we've got those layered up. Now this is Miri Lava holographic paper. Let me see if I can catch it in the light, but it's a cool specialty paper as well. And all these papers are from 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop. Now, one of the tricks with working with acetate is that your glue is going to show, and it's kind of just the way that it is. This does dry clear, so it won't be super noticeable once it's clear. But because it's going to show, I'm going to try to be very scarce with my glue and just use as little as possible. And I'm just going to put it along the top and the bottom of the card like that. Now we're working on the back side of the inside of the card. So if this is the front of the card, this is the inside front. And I'm just going to lay that down, lining that up. Acetate, when you adhere it, the glue doesn't soak in like it does on regular cardstock, so you have to be kind of careful. It takes a minute to dry, and it will definitely move around on you before it's dry. So see how cool that looks when it's closed? You can really see the design, and when it's open, it looks like it's see-through. Super fun. All right, now let's get these letters layered on here. I'm just going to follow. It's easy to know where to place them because you've got the shadows there to follow along with. And you can see how having those extra layers just makes it, gives it a bit of dimension and makes it look like these are really thick chipboard letters. It's almost like we've made our own thickers, if you're familiar with thickers, those foam stickers. Okay, so that's idea number one, using printed acetate. And like I said, I'll finish this card off at the end. Let's move on to idea number two. All right, idea number two is to use cardstock strips. So I've cut some cardstock little strips out from some pearlescent cardstock. And then I took my basic file here and I actually laid down some texture paste with a stencil. So I was able to position the stencil with this part masked off, so I could stencil here and here, but not stencil here. So it gives it just kind of a cool effect. This is just basic white cardstock that I added this texture paste to. So at this point, it looks cool, just white. You could add alcohol ink if you want, but because we're doing something so colorful behind it, I decided to just leave it white. So the way that this works, we're going to just start laying down cardstock strips. I have a piece of paper that's cut to fit inside this card exactly. So it's the exact size of the card front. We're just gonna lay cardstock strips down on this, just kind of alternating colors, one at a time. And you can see I'm actually going to have these strips hang off the top and the bottom. So if you can see that, it's actually, I've purposely had them hang off the top and the bottom because at the end I'm going to trim it. And then if I've done that, everything will line up nice and neat. So let's just go ahead and keep working to get our strips adhered down. And again, I've got 4 colors, so I'm just alternating colors back and forth. And I'm pushing them up against the one next to it to make sure everything's nice and tight. All right, so now on the back side, we can see that it's overlapping on the edges, but I can easily trim that up and make it look really nice. So I'm just gonna grab my paper trimmer. Slice off all those little pieces. And the goal is to just have like a nice crisp edge. That's why it actually looks better if you let them overlap a little, because then you can trim them off and make them all even. All right, so we've got our little colorful panel, and now this just slides right in, and you can see how the pop of color shows through the front of the window like this. So you could do it a couple ways. You could adhere this to the back of the card, but then you would have no place to write your sentiment. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to the front of the card. It just kind of depends on what look you like. If you've used lighter colored papers, maybe you'd be fine to just go ahead and adhere that to the back, and you could write over that on the top. But because I've used dark bold colors, I'm going to go ahead and just adhere that to the back. And I'm going to place my glue only on the parts that won't show through. I'm putting my glue on the card base so that I know where to put glue. If I was putting it on this piece, I might get it so that it was in the window part. So put your glue on the card front itself. All right, we're gonna line that up, smush it down a little. And it has such a fun, cool effect. All right, now we're gonna do the same thing we did on the last one and layer up our letters. One thing that's kind of fun you can do if you're cutting out multiple of these, you can actually switch up your letters. So like my last one was this teal color, I could actually switch letters and do white on this one and teal on this one. So, or you could just cut out more letters. But if you're already making multiples, you can do a little switcheroo, and that's fun. Okay, now I'm gonna glue my letters to the front of the card. All right, so that is idea number 2, using bright cardstock strips. Now you see I'm only this much is showing through, so technically you could do your strips just on this small section if you wanted, but I wanted to kind of give a flat base on the back, so I just went ahead and did all the way up. All right, card number 2. All right, idea number 3 is to choose a pattern paper or a specialty paper and put that behind your little window. So I've got a sheet of holographic confetti cardstock, which has kind of that rainbow look when it hits the light. So I'm going to use that behind my little window, and it looks really cool contrasted against the black. So I'm going to go ahead and get that adhered down. Again, I'm going to put my glue just right along the edge here so that I know where I need to leave blank for the window. And I only had a small piece of this, so I'm just going to line it up with the bottom and leave it at that. It won't cover the full card inside just because I didn't have a full sheet of it at the moment. So we're going to line that up. Looks super cool peeking through the black. And then I cut my letters out of different colors. So again, I've got that bright pearlescent cardstock. I thought that went really well with the holographic cardstock. Just kind of pick up some of the rainbow color. Now, one thing I can do, I just thought of this. I actually, cut this file out and it cut out of black. So I could really layer these up. Let's try this. Let's just do lots of layers and see what it looks like. Okay, so we're actually going to do 4 layers of cardstock for each letter. So let's see how that looks. I'm going to start with the 2 black ones. Again, I'm going to make sure really that I've got them really lined up, especially when I'm doing so many layers. If I'm a little off, then it'll get really off by the time I get 4 layers on there. Okay, there we go. So there's my H, and that's nice and thick. So I think it's going to look pretty cool. I like it. It looks almost like foam because it's so thick. Very cool. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish off my letter. Since I'm gluing all these pieces together, I won't make you watch me do that. I'm going to get the rest of this sentiment finished. Okay, got that finished up. I really like the look of the extra dimension. Really adds something cool to it. So that is idea number 3. Use pattern paper or your favorite specialty paper behind that window. All right, and the last idea is we're actually gonna make a little shaker window to go behind our thanks. So this is acetate. I've got 2 sheets of acetate. It's clear, so you probably can't see it, but I have 2 identical sized pieces. I'm gonna create a little shaker from this and then stick that behind my thanks. Now, there's a couple issues here. First of all, this from the back side, the shaker, I still want it to be see-through with the shaker pieces. So I don't want to put anything on the back because I think it looks really cool when it's like see-through, but does have a shaker. So from the back side, you're going to obviously be able to see the shaker edges and all of that. You'll be able to see that. And then the other thing is to create the little shaker box, I have to put foam tape. So you are going to see a little bit of foam tape on either side. I think it's going to be fine. I think it's a cool enough effect that it's worth it. So we're going to do that. And then the other thing I've done is on my letters, I have used, after these letters were cut out, I just embossed them. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but they have like tiny little pinprick dots on them. So I thought that was something just a little bit fun. You could also just cut these out of an embossed cardstock already, but I'll use my already cut out pieces and embossed them. So let's start off by making our shaker window. The first thing I'm going to do is take some foam tape. Now this is really hard to show on camera because you probably can't see the acetate, and honestly I'm having a hard time seeing it too, but you want to just lay your foam tape down right along the edge of that acetate. I don't know if that helps you see it better. So we're just going to go right up against the edge. I'm going to trim it flush against the edge. The secret to shakers is you can't have any gaps in your foam, or else your glitter and sequins will just fall out. So you want to make sure that any seams, foam tape seams, are nice and tight. That's kind of the secret. Okay, so I've got those two down. I'm going to trim off the excess here. So again, you can see I'm going to butt up this right here. I'm butting up this edge really tight against the other piece of foam because I don't want anything to sneak out. Have you ever had that happen with a shaker card? When you shake it the first time, everything goes flying. I don't want that to happen. And then the other thing I do is I go through and really push down my foam on every single piece because I want to make sure that it's adhered really good. So now we have a little container that we can fill with shaker bits. And I've just grabbed a few things. I've got some colored balls. I have some colored confetti dots. And I also have some gold glitter. I don't love working with glitter because I typically make a mess. This is why I like glitter cardstock better, but I'm just gonna do just a very little bit, some gold sequin glitter, and hope that I can keep that contained. I'm gonna sprinkle in some of my party dots. Now, one thing you wanna pay attention to when you're making a shaker card is the depth of your foam pretty much determines how big your elements can be. So if you've got really thick foam, you can use some bigger embellishments. If you've got a thinner foam, you need to make sure that you're using really small things because the depth of the foam is how much room you're going to have for your shaker. All right, so we've got all that stuff stuck in there. And now I'm going to very carefully peel this tape up. I like to kind of stick my finger in the middle of the acetate to hold it down while I peel. Believe me, I've messed this up before and had the whole thing go flying. Oh, see, that almost happened. Okay. I had one little bead escape. All right, now I'm going to very carefully, see, this is what happens. Let me just show you this. When you bump it, little pieces get stuck to the foam. And if I had just put that on, it would not adhere at that point because that bead is in the way. So you have to be really, really careful at this stage that you're not bumping it. And I'm going to do the same thing, just run my finger along all the edges and make sure it's really stuck down everywhere before I pick it up and flip it and start shaking it. Are we ready for the shake, shake, shake? Yay, everything's staying contained. All right, so now we're going to put this on the back of our card, just like this. And again, you're going to be able to see that adhesive, the foam tape through it, but I think it's going to be just fine. So what I'm going to do is actually run my adhesive just along the top and bottom. Now remember, acetate doesn't soak in glue like regular cardstock does. So you have to be a little careful about how much adhesive you use, just because it glops out when it's pushed down. Okay, now we're gonna flip this, place that very carefully. And then another thing about acetate is it doesn't dry like real immediately with liquid glue, because like I said, it's not porous. It doesn't soak up the glue and kind of adhere. So you have to just give it a minute. So we're gonna just let that catch and seal for a second. All right, so that's the inside of the card, but from the outside, you just see a really cool shaker effect. So fun. All right, now I'm gonna work on getting my letters adhered to the front, and I'll be back when that's done. All right, I got that layered up. I think this is probably my favorite one, but I've got the embossed letters, if you can see, and then a little shaker behind it. So super fun. I'm gonna go ahead and get these cards finished up, just kind of add some embellishments and finish my designs, and then we'll be back to show you the final product. Okay, despite my best intentions to just finish those up right after the last filming, it's been several days, I've got new nails. Here we go. So I finished off my 2 mom cards and one of my thanks cards. This first mom card, I just used a flower die cut and cut it out of the same pearlescent paper and mounted that on top, added a few gems just so it looks like the flowers growing out of the mom. Second mom, I just added some die cut little flowers and some gems to just kind of make it sweet. This thanks confetti card, the shaker card, I took a doily, cut it in half and mounted on either side of the thanks, and then added a little rolled flower and some decorative leaves. So I've got those 3 cards done. Now we're gonna finish off this thanks card. And the strategy I'm gonna use here is making kind of a brick, it's basically like a strip card. If you've seen those cards that have like the cardstock strips for the background, kind of the same idea, but we're gonna cut them at different levels to make kind of a staggered design. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've cut a whole bunch of strips the same width so that everything will match up. And I'm just going to place some glue on the back of one of them and start it off just like so. And then I'm going to add another one, lining it up but leaving a little space. So it will look like that. And now for the next strip, I'm gonna stagger it. So we're gonna go, let's do like that much this time. And I'm just eyeballing it. You could line it up, you know, like draw lines with a ruler if you wanted to be super precise. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. That one doesn't look like it's the same width for some reason. Okay. So we're just going to keep working up to the top. And there's honestly just no rhyme or reason. I'm just layering these however I want. And get that one added. Trying to pay attention so that my spacing is all somewhat the same. Okay, so we're going to add this one down here on the bottom. And now we're starting to run out of strips. So what you can do is just trim along the edges here, and this will give us more short strips to work with. All right. Oops, I bumped that. All right, now we'll just trim off all the excess strips. So we get nice, clean edges. All right. I wonder, I could put one more, but I think it'll look weird if I do that. So I'm just gonna leave it like this. Okay, so that is the finished card. I think I'll trim right here. There's a little overlap right there. Okay, so there you have it. There's 4 different ideas for working with bridge cards. Totally different designs, each one. We've got kind of funky, we've got a little bit vintage, and then we've got sweet for mom. So I hope that has inspired you to try some of these on your own. Again, you can grab the file in the description for free for both the thanks and the mom version and make your own. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great day.